Welcome to Who Knew. We are fans of the current series of Doctor Who, and here we discuss our likes, dislikes, and insights into the modern regeneration of the show. Subscribe, review, and listen to us on iTunes and Stitcher, or our YouTube channel, youtube.com/WhoKnewPodcast. All our episodes are on WhoKnewPodcast.com. You can leave comments there, or email us at WhoKnewPodcast@gmail.com. We also have an Instagram and Twitter account. Tweet at us at WhoKnewPodcast, and find us on Facebook. Gonna hit... There we go. You can hit the OK. All right, so today's episode, we have Alisa, who is the creator of the Dr. Puppet shorts series. Short series? They're shorts, but there's a series of them, so we'll call them a shorts series. And she did some of these or a bulk of these for the 50th, is that right?
Around that time, yeah, there was kind of a whole plan there I can talk about, but I was very active in 2013, yes.
Oh, 2013 feels like it's so long ago.
Well, kind of was.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, so today we have myself, Eugene, Josh on this episode. Hello. And we'll just go into it. So, Alisa, can you tell us how you got introduced to Doctor Who?
Yeah, I think I had kind of a typical story for a lot of Americans who didn't sadly grow up with it, which I did not. I'm sure I had some fleeting encounters with Doctor Who, but it didn't stick as a child. So I got into it around 2008, 2009 through getting the DVDs from Netflix, and I was introduced to it through nerd friends who were raving about it and said, you should watch this. So I did. So one of my first memories is like getting caught up with New Who. I watched a little classic Who, but mostly I was sticking to New Who because it was easier to get the DVDs from Netflix. And watching in 2008, 2009, the first episode I ever watched live, I think, was like The Waters of Mars, or maybe The Planet of the Dead?
Yes.
Yeah, one of those was the first episode I ever watched live, and I remember Matt Smith had already been announced when I got into it, so I remember this anticipation for the new Doctor. That was kind of my first memories. And by the time like Matt Smith started in was that 2010 or 2011, and it was like exploding in popularity in the US, and I remember going to New York Comic-Con that year and everyone was cosplaying as the Doctor, and I was like, this is the coolest fandom and everyone's so nice, and that's kind of how I got into it.
Oh man, that's awesome. I think I was around the same time when David Tennant was leaving. I was live at that point as well. It was a bittersweet time for sure, because catching up was great, but then sending him off was a bummer.
I remember always knowing I was going to lose him. Maybe that helped. I don't know.
Yeah. So then your first Doctor, since it was DVDs, was Eccleston?
Yeah. I mean,
Wow.
but again, I knew he wasn't the current Doctor when I started. So I always kind of think, my Doctor is either like, it's either Matt Smith or Peter Capaldi, because those were the two Doctors who were active when Dr. Puppet was being made. Honestly, Capaldi more than Matt Smith, so I'm kind of feel closer to Capaldi for that reason, because he was the face of the show when I was the most active.
Very cool. So we're here because you did those shorts, and Josh works in animation, and I sort of work in animation with distributing. Josh is more of creating. So we were turned on to these particular shorts that you did because of somebody you worked with, Rebecca Lando from, at the time she was with Nerdist, and now she's with Tongle, and she did some stuff for producing some of these 50th things to tie in with the Day of the Doctor.
Yeah, I think Rebecca was the first person who ever reached out to me from Nerdist, and Nerdist was kind of like it would take this. I think that was very instrumental in kind of launching Dr. Puppet, because Dr. Puppet was originally like a very small thing that I was just doing on my own. It was actually originally a Tumblr because it was 2012. It's very dated now, but it was Tumblr, and then I made one little animation for Christmas in 2012 with the 11th Dr. Puppet. He was the only puppet I had at the time, and then a few months later, in early 2013, Rebecca reached out from Nerdist, and there was kind of like this initiative on YouTube to have more content creators, and there was even a little pool of money for that. So I was able to be part of the Nerdist Alliance, where there was like, here's a little money, make some some more Doctor Puppet. So that's kind of how it launched. So Rebecca was all there for that, which was
Nice.
super awesome. And that otherwise I probably wouldn't have done much more past 2013, just posting little celebratory photos to celebrate the 50th. But instead I did this whole super long series of stop motion animated Doctor Who videos, 5 of which came out in 2013. The original plan was that this whole story that I was telling would conclude on the 50th in 2013. Missed the mark by quite a few years because the final episode came out in 2018. But an attempt was made.
Yeah, I was noticing the timestamps. I'm glad you made the playlist because that was easy because I was looking at the behind the scenes and all the other videos. I was like, I want the episodes.
You can see they get more spaced out. 5 episodes came out in 2013. We managed to make a Christmas video every Christmas between 2012 and 2017. But episode 7 came out in like 2016, and then episode 8. No, there's no 8. Episode 7. No, there is an 8. What am I saying? Is there? Now I forgot how many episodes are. The finale, whatever it is, the finale came out in 2018, like 2.5 years later. But the plan is that it would have ended with the 50th, but that was all because of Nerdist. And I wrote this story at the beginning of 2013, this Doctor Who story that I wanted to tell. It had every single Doctor in it. So that would have been a great way to celebrate the 50th if it had come out in time. But it's okay.
Oh, it's still good. It's still good to watch them and like revisiting them. Even I remember some of them, but I didn't finish it, so it was good to finish it.
It felt really good to finish it on my end, and I should say after in 2013 when I had that initiative under Nerdist to make more, I did get other people involved, so it's not entirely me because that would have been insane. So I made all the puppets, although I had help with some of the costumes from a really talented friend of mine. But I had 2 animators who did a lot of the animation, and I had different people storyboarding for me. And then, of course, I had Scott, who did the music from the beginning. He did all the music. He's also every voice that you hear. He's the real Brit.
Oh, wow.
So he's a legit old school Doctor Who fan. So he was also the old school Doctor Who advisor for everything, and really became instrumental in writing the stories with me because he had such great knowledge of Doctor Who, much more than me. So I needed him, and we had such a blast. Actually, we had a little Doctor Puppet reunion a couple weeks ago, and it was the first time we had all seen each other in years, and that was great. Like, there were 5 of us that worked on Doctor Puppet, got to hang out together. It was a good time. Really nice to see everybody.
That is great.
What was the what's the longest you were in production on one of them?
That finale episode, it is episode 8. I'm trying to remember how many episodes there were. It's episode 8. Oh my god. We started it in 2016 and it came out at the end of 2018. It came out like 3 or 4 days before Jodie Whittaker's first episode, which was really important that I wanted it to come out before there was another Doctor because Jodie Whittaker isn't in it, and it would have felt bad if Although I did add a Jodie Whittaker Easter egg at the last minute that was so subtle that I don't think anyone's ever noticed it. So
we'll have
to look real close. It's
and it's in the 12th planet episode.
Yeah, the 12th planet. That one is super long, as you can tell. It's like twice as long as any other.
It's a finale.
It's a finale. It got a little bit epic. It took so long to make. I mean, the amount of animation in it and the compositing, and I did all the compositing for that myself and all the effects, and I did some of the stop motion, but really the other 2 animators, Rachel and Aaron, did most of the stop motion in there. And I mean, everyone works. They're both professional animators, so everyone works. So this was a nights and weekends passion project.
I know where that I've been there.
What did you use for compositing? After Effects?
Yeah. No, I don't do 3D, and there's a lot of 3D in there, but it's all After Effects 3D, so it's all little, it's a little, it's a little. There's some cheats, but it starts with like a whole 3D shot. But just know that was done in After Effects.
Yes. No, it's impressive to get all that much done, especially that. My question was going to be: was this something that was nights and weekends, or was this something that you worked on full time? What were you doing full time while you were doing all this?
Yeah, the majority of the time during Dr. Puppet, I've worked at a media company, so mostly as a motion graphics animator. But when Dr. Puppet started, like the first year of Dr. Puppet, I was working on a Nick Jr. show, animating on that. And that's, I sat next to Erin, who I knew, but I didn't know her super well. But it's one of those like jobs where, they say, oh, here's your desk mate. And then, of course, we had to, become friends. And she'd never watched Doctor Who at all. So I got her to watch Doctor Who, like other people had gotten me to watch it. So I kind of dragged her into Doctor Who. And then we both got laid off of our job because the Nickelodeon show we were on didn't get renewed for another season.
What show was that?
Team Umizoomi.
Oh, I remember that.
Yeah, it was a math show. It was the kind of show where like the character says how many peaches and then stares at the screen. But it was really fun to animate. It was all done in After Effects, and Erin and I were working on that together. So when that job ended, Erin and I were both unemployed. So we were actually kind of productive the couple months after we lost our jobs because we didn't have anything to do. So there was a Dr. Puppet Christmas special we made, the one that came out at the end of 2013, and we made it between us losing our jobs at the end of October or beginning of November and Christmas. We made the whole thing in that like month and a half.
Wow.
That's interesting. Coincidentally, I was working at Nickelodeon when I first started watching Doctor Who.
Love it.
I'm glad you brought up Nickelodeon because these shorts reminded me of like Pinwheels, stop motion things that they would import from like Europe or just non-US stuff. So it reminded me of those warm, fuzzy feelings.
Definitely. I mean, I always loved stop motion and animation, and I kind of had the experience of like at some point, I don't even know when, like realizing that like all the animation I loved was like British, and I'm just like, oh crap, I can't work at those studios, like they're not here, like. But it's weird that like stop motion and Doctor Who, like they are both really British, but they had never been combined. So it felt like a natural fit. And then plus like Christmas specials, which Doctor Who was doing at the time, and I just kind of melted them all together.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think that's why it took off.
What was a major influence on you first? The fact that you got into stop motion as opposed to traditional or anything like that. Well, I would call stop motion traditional in its own, but hand drawn, we'll just say. Like when you were younger or when you transitioned into doing that. Can you give us a little origin story?
I always just loved making stuff, like sculpting. I always had clay, so it just was a natural fit. I mean, I liked drawing too, although like when I got to college, I went to art school and I realized like I didn't like drawing that much, so I never wanted to do it. Like drawing's hard, or I don't know.
It wasn't can be hard.
Me. Drawing's hard.
What school?
Pratt.
Oh, that's a good school.
It is okay. The animation program has improved since I went there, so everyone's like, oh, you went there. I'm like,
yeah, I don't know about the animation.
It's good now. It was smaller when I was there. But yeah, I just like making stuff, and I loved Wallace and Gromit. And when I was really little, I really liked California Raisins.
Oh yeah, that was also Will Vinton from.
But that's from, exactly.
Adventures of Mark Twain, which we talked about briefly.
Yeah, I had a little run-in with Will Vinton as a kid without realizing, and then kind of connected all that later. That was like the one thing where I was like, okay, that one was American. Yeah. But most of it's not. Even stuff that, like I said, a lot of stuff is imported, and but those aren't the things you think of as a kid. Like
no, you don't.
No.
Well, they don't get heavily marketed. I mean, I know in Canada they have like a lot of animation gets and film gets subsidized.
Oh yeah.
I don't know about in Europe and England or anything like that.
I mean, I think so. I'm not entirely sure, but there is more of a the support for it. Especially historically. So not so much here, unfortunately. So this better, all the good indie independent animation comes out of Europe because they actually pay for it. And like Channel 4 in England, in the UK in the 90s was producing a lot of really great indie animation. I don't think they do that so much anymore, so even that's gone away, but a lot of just great independent shorts. Like that's how, I mean, even like Wallace and Gromit, I'm not entirely sure, but that might be how some of that stuff got made.
Do you have a favorite?
Ooh, I mean, Wallace and Gromit.
But which one?
I mean, the original ones. I mean, the Wrong Trousers is probably the best. That's where everyone should start. The
Yeah.
original shorts from the 90s. Yeah.
What's the your favorite part of because this of the process of stop motion? Because there's so many facets to it. Even though there's so many facets to hand drawn animation, you're still drawing it all for the most part. Whereas,
Is that what you do? Do you do hand drawing?
Yes, I do hand drawing. At the moment I'm a storyboard artist, but I've been a director, assistant director, layout artist, animator. But and
Awesome.
these days, storyboard artist is a combination of an animator, layout artist, storyboard artist, editor. So, but yes, I'm drawing. But I never watched stop motion and said I want to do that. I've watched stop motion and go like, that's crazy, and I'm amazed, and I'm glad I'm not doing it. But I am quite impressed by how it's live action. Like you're using lighting. You don't create anything, I guess, virtually, and I don't mean that computer wise, but even with a pencil, everything it's closer to live action than anything else. So can you talk a little bit about just all those facets? And my original question was, what's your favorite part? But so answer all that is.
Yeah, no, but that is my favorite part. I guess for me, I'm very hands-on. So I love making something, and like drawing for me it feels like more work. And where I could just make a thing, I don't have to draw it. I can just actually make it. And I love like sourcing materials. It's so fun to go, when I have to make a costume, going and finding fabric, like painting, like you just get to be crafty. And also it's like good for like an engineer brain. You have to figure out how to make it. So I really love making the puppets and the props. That's been my favorite thing. And I did work a little bit professionally in stop motion in Portland, very briefly. Like I didn't work on any of the big movies anyone's ever heard of. I worked on just commercial stuff. But at the same time, Coraline was being made. So I would hear about all the rumblings at Coraline, but I wasn't there. I was just like, oh, okay, fine. Maybe one day. But then I know I didn't stay in Portland long enough to end up at Leica. But that was the dream of mine in college. But it's worked out that I can still pursue that love of making stuff, but I just do it for my own passion projects. And After Effects has been a pretty solid career option too for motion graphics. Don't knock motion graphics, especially if you live in New York, because that's kind of there's a lot of work for it.
Yep. And I know a few people that's their main job.
Yeah, I'd have to go to LA if I wanted to really work in TV again.
Yeah. Where are you located?
New York. New York. So I know a lot of my friends have gone to LA.
Yeah. You get when you come out here, you sort of get stuck here. I mean, it's not like I want to leave, but I know like there's a lot of people who I can tell this isn't where they should be, and I just think, well, what are they going to do?
I guess the pandemic has allowed people to work.
Yeah, that's the thing too. Great. The union is actually, I don't know if this is pertinent for the podcast, but the union is trying to, there are people at the union who are trying to go more nationwide because so many people have left Los Angeles during the pandemic for, the obvious reasons, but have still been working. And now that things are opening up, no one wants to go back to the office, but you can't just outright fire people. So some people will probably are grandfathered in, but at some point, things need to be stabilized. So they're trying, I don't know if they're literally trying to be actually nationwide or some sister union in New York, so. Whatever it may be.
Well, there are some unions in New York. And even to tie back to Dr. Puppet, the union rep who was at the White House is the Rachel I was just talking about, who worked on Dr. Puppet. So,
gosh.
Yeah, that's her. So, Dr. Puppet, very pro-union production, but I mean, there was no
union there. I'll stop asking this stuff for a minute, Chief. But is the union there IATSE?
Yeah, at Titmouse.
Yeah. Oh, Titmouse. Are you at Titmouse?
No, but I know people there, so Rachel's
right.
Yeah.
So good,
go Titmouse, go Rachel.
Yes. Okay, back to Dr. Who.
Well, going along that lines of animation, have you seen the official animated Doctor Who things? Like the one with Martha? I can't remember the name of that one.
Oh, I can't remember too. Those were they predate Dr. Puppet. They're pretty old.
Yeah,
Those two.
because
Dreamland.
Yes, Dreamland
right?
is the other one with New Mexico and Area 51.
Yep. I can't. And there were two of them. I have
What's the
seen them.
one-
It's a long time ago.
You would talk about it, Eugene. There was one that they lost the footage, so they ended up.
Oh,
but they had it. They had the audio.
That is when they can't find the master for an episode, then they break it up and do
Yeah, they recreate.
animation.
They like do the lost episodes
Because
they've done that for a handful of them. One just came out not that long ago.
Yeah, it was a Shada, I think.
That one's pretty old too, but there's been recent ones.
I know the 10th Planet, the last episode, the one where William Hartnell regenerates, that is lost, so they had to animate just the last episode. And the one with Martha is Infinite Quest.
That's it.
The other one that I wanted to ask you about, if you know about it, is the Scream of Shalka. Do you know about that one?
I've seen probably a long time ago.
That's okay. That's before Eccleston was casted, so they had Richard E. Grant as the Doctor.
Yes.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Yeah.
And he became the great intelligence. Is that right?
Yes, he did. Very good, Josh. You're paying attention.
Yeah. See, the funny thing is I would never have had that good of a recall if we were actually doing a full episode of our podcast. I'm the one who's always who never can remember the names of different things and stuff like that.
I mean, he makes me look smarter, so thank you.
Until I do. Once I actually remember it, it doesn't leave my brain. But anyway.
Well, there are some things that in the Dr. Puppet episodes that tie in nicely with the 50th day of the Doctor, but did you do that afterwards, or did you know a little bit about the plot?
So, well, it's kind of a little bit of everything. I mean, I will say historically, Dr. Puppet has done a great job of predicting things in Doctor Who. And also to tie in Richard E. Grant to this, he's just everywhere.
Yes,
the first Doctor, because he's also in Peter Capaldi's Academy Award-winning film.
Yeah.
Like he's all over the place. The very first Dr. Puppet video I made, the first short, as I mentioned, was a standalone Christmas thing that I made totally by myself in 2012. I can't even watch it anymore because I think it's horrendous. Like, I mean, I very much made it by myself in my apartment with a small amount of help, but I did all the animation myself, and my stop motion was super rusty at the time. Dr. Who got so much better after that. Like, really, Aaron and Rachel helping kicked my butt, but I made this by myself, and I wanted to make some kind of little Doctor Who stop motion Christmas thing. And, my brain went to Rankin Bass. I was like, I'll kind of do a Doctor Who Rankin Bass pastiche, because that's, in America, we have that for our Christmas special. So I thought it was kind of a fun way to unite like a British Doctor Who Christmas special and an American stop motion Christmas special. So my thought was snowman, like it's got to have a snowman in it. So I had this little story about a snowman, but it's made of tiny alien, like snowflake UFO things. And I thought that'd be really fun. And, but I gave it kind of the like Rudolph story. So it's called How the Dr. Puppet Saved Christmas. So it's about the idea that there was like a crazy snowstorm, and there's New York City in it because I live in New York, and the lights, and I was like, this is great. And I released it on December 23rd, and you can check that on YouTube. And the Christmas special for Doctor Who that year, of course, was The Snowman, which is about a snowman made of tiny alien UFO snowflakes. And when that started and I was watching it, I was like, oh my God, everybody's going to think I copied this. I didn't. This is a coincidence. Like, ideas do sometimes, like, the universe aligns in crazy ways. And I'm like, there's no way people will think I did this on purpose, and I didn't. And I swear to this day, I came up with the idea in like September. There was no trailer. There were no photos of the Doctor Who Christmas special. It's a total coincidence. So that happened. And then other little things came along too, where they're very much aligned. The main like alignment that we did for the 50th, which is not like, has nothing to do with the actual 50th. But when we realized that the finale of Dr. Puppet was never going to be done in time, we kind of made an effort to have an episode that would come out in November that kind of still fit the theme. So that's the episode that's set in a bakery with Clara. Yeah. And it's like a different Clara echo, because by then that was the year of like there being different Claras, so I had this idea just to make another Clara, and that this one works in a bakery in the 80s, and she's baking little celebratory cakes for the 50th, so that was kind of a fun little way to have a cake. But we had other little like eerie moments on Dr. Puppet that really echoed the show. And of course in 2013, that's when Peter Capaldi was announced as the 12th Doctor, but he didn't actually start yet. But when he was announced, like especially me and Aaron working on Dr. Puppet together, we're constantly like analyzing Peter Capaldi and trying to guess what kind of doctor he would be like. And Aaron just like could read that man's mind and like got into his psyche. And we started like trying to figure him out in 2013, 2014. And we made another Christmas special in 2014 that starred the 12th Doctor, but we started making it before his first episode premiered, or actually I think the week his episode premiered, because it came out like at the end of August. So we started making the episode in September, and we had seen like 1 or 2 episodes with his doctor. We didn't really know what his deal was, but Aaron knew that Peter Capaldi was super into like, he was like, you know, old school. He loved vampires. He loved German expressionism. So we made a German expressionism Christmas special, like a horror Christmas special, which of course he did make a horror Christmas special.
Yep. Last Christmas, maybe?
Yeah, which I don't think it came out that year. Was it the 2015 one?
It's later, yeah.
I can't remember, but we still, like Aaron, she also predicted his costume. There's still drawings you can find on Aaron's Tumblr where she was trying to figure out his costume. And she, I mean, she basically drew his costume before, like she guessed it. Like
wow. Which one?
Not his initial one, like the punk rock one. But she drew that in like 2013.
Oh wow!
Because that's how Peter dresses.
That's amazing. That's not a costume that someone would predict for Peter Capaldi.
If you start studying that man, like his personal life, you might predict it, that he would be like a punk rock dad. That's basically what Aaron said. Like, I think he's a punk rock dad. That's going to be his persona. And she was right. It just took a little while to get there. But yeah, that's, you know, yeah, so it was always fun. We got so deep into Doctor Who during those years, but it was so fun. Like Aaron and Rachel and Scott, we were over analyzing everything. It was fun, but it's kind of a relief not to do that anymore and just enjoy the show and that it not be such a big part of my life. But
so I think you're a little too hard on your Christmas special, because I enjoyed that. I think it's because the story is so I know what you were going for and I loved it.
Thank you. I'm glad. I can't watch it, but I mean, it's serviceable. But we got way better at it, especially when I had the other people who were there with me who were really pushing it and elevating it because they were better animators than me. The one I was just talking about, the German expressionism Peter Capaldi Christmas episode, which it's called The Planet That Came for Christmas, and that I think is our best standalone episode. That one is so fun. It's also the first one we did an Indiegogo campaign, so we raised some money, so that really helped having a little budget so we could push a little further. Scott did an amazing job with the score. The score is so good, and we spent a lot of that money on hiring musicians to record. So we had like some of the best. Scott through his university had access to some really, really good musicians. So we had like one of the best like violinists in the whole country. Like,
oh my gosh.
No, I have to say that the score is really good.
Yeah, the score is amazing. Scott is unbelievably talented. I'm so lucky that he was able to make such amazing music. So Dr. Puppet doesn't have a lot of dialogue in it, so the music is the voice of the characters.
Yeah,
so
it's
that
great.
really ties it together. And he's the narrator too.
Yeah,
so.
It's weird. When I first heard him as a narrator, I was like, that sounds a lot like Paul McGann. I don't know if you heard that or if he tried to do that, but
he just sounds like that. They're both northern, so maybe it's that.
And then he also did the voice of Tom Baker in that one episode. Is that right?
Yeah,
that's really
one
good.
Little clip. I know. No, his Tom Baker is amazing. That's the only time a doctor actually has a line of dialogue, and a lot of people assume I just stole a piece of a clip of Tom Baker asking if you want jelly babies, but that is Scott. Yeah,
it's that good that I thought that too, but then I looked when I waited for the credits. I'm like, oh.
Yeah, no, he's just that good. I know.
So yeah, I'm glad he was able to do the music. Again, the music is great.
It's so good. I mean, we have this like, original songs. I mean, for the episode we did end up releasing for the 50th, which is it's bad. I'm like at the point where I'm like trying to remember the episode titles and the numbers. It's episode 5. That's the one that we released, so that's the one in the bakery, and that one begins it's in the 80s, and I remember actually my original plan was that it would just say like London 1985, and Scott said, no, that's boring, don't put that. He's like, why don't we just set the mood with like a radio playing 80s songs? I'm like, okay, Scott, that's brilliant. I'm like, but how am I gonna get an 80s song? He's like, don't worry about it. So he made a whole album.
He made a whole album?
He did, yeah. You can buy it on his Bandcamp. It's called Radio Castellan. You can still buy it. It's he made 3 original 80s songs. So we hear, and he's also the DJ. So there's like a DJ introducing the songs. That's how the episode starts, which is brilliant because it sets the scene perfectly, much better than just a title card saying it's London in the 80s. We have Scott, the DJ, introducing 2 of his songs, and then at the end it ends with another one that ties it into the 50th, so that one gets to play longer, and that's Scott singing and playing most of the instruments, and it's just great.
And so if you quick plug for him, like what is his Bandcamp screen name?
ScottAmpleford.bandcamp.com.
Nice.
Can you spell that last name? That it's not Jones or nothing.
No, Ampleford. It's straightforward. AMPLEFORD. Ampleford.
All right, there you go.
Yeah, and you can find links through most of the Dr. Puppet videos have some links to his Bandcamp, but you can buy the whole Dr. Puppet soundtrack on there too, and plus a few other like standalone Dr. Puppet things. And he made so much original music for Dr. Puppet, and it's all original. Like everything is, occasionally there's like a pastiche to something, but he didn't rip off Murray Gold or anything. It's original stuff because it has to be, and otherwise we would have gotten flagged on YouTube.
And that 5th episode ends with all the doctors represented in cupcake form. That was great too.
And Rachel made those cupcakes. Rachel is also really she's talented on many levels. She did a lot of the animation, and she also has made miniature baked goods out of Sculpey for a long time. That's like one of her things. So all the baked goods in episode she made, and most of them she just had already, like just had them in a box. So we just put them on the set, and then I gave them back to her at the end. But she custom made all of the themed cupcakes for each doctor, which is so cute.
Yeah, I love when things happen like that. Like they do the one with just color palettes. I can't remember what that's called, but yeah, it's nice.
Yeah, no, she did such a good job. We even like came up with the flavors for them all. Like it was like a whole thing. We spent so much time again over analyzing everything, but in the best like nerd way. And that was our little celebration for the 50th as an apology for not getting the finale done in time, because it would have been really great to have the finale with because it would have been all the doctors together. That was always the plan for the Dr. Puppet finale. Of course it wouldn't have been the same finale we released, because the one we released in 2018 ended up starring the 12th Doctor, who did not exist in 2013. So it was not actually the original ending of Dr. Puppet. We spent so much time making it that we had to change the ending, but the original ending was super lame. So we came up with a better ending over the next few years, so it was okay.
And when was the last one made?
We released it. Said it was in 2018. It was like 3 days before Jodie Whittaker's first episode.
That's right.
But we started making it in 2016. 2016 honestly was a terrible year, so we just weren't in the mood, and most of 2017 also, honestly. So we weren't working solidly. There was some just
some
we
breaks.
needed a break.
Yeah.
To deal with reality, and then it was nice to go back to it.
That's a lot to produce in just a few years, not barely even a few.
It was a lot. Maybe in hindsight, I would have made the story a little bit smaller so we could have told it in fewer episodes. But I mean, no regrets, but I wouldn't really recommend this for most people. Dr. Puppet was great, but at the end of the day, it wasn't our IP, so we were always in kind of a weird position with it. But the BBC was always really, really kind to me and very supportive.
That's good.
They were fully aware that we were doing this from the beginning. And I was even working with Nerdist, I was always like, this is okay, right? We're not going to get shut down. We're not going to get in trouble. Like, if we're going to put this much money and effort, I want to make sure it's okay to do. And I was always fully told it was we were allowed because it was under parody, so it was okay, and we weren't actually making enough money to make anyone care, and we were being so kind with the characters that the BBC would, was fully supportive of what we were doing, because it wasn't rude or anything. It was nice. So everyone was always really, really nice about it. I mean, I've met quite a number of people at BBC through it. I went to a Doctor Who fan film panel at VidCon in 2016 with the BBC.
Wow.
That was cool. They flew me to California. I'd never been to California before. They were surprised. And a few other things. I did a comic book cover in 2018 for one of the 13th Doctors, for her first comic, one of the variant covers. So I did finally do some like official stuff for the BBC. So it was all nice, but it was still a lot of work to put into something that you don't own.
Well, something we all love. That's why we're here.
That's why we're here. No regrets, and it opened a lot of doors for me. So it was pretty nice.
Good.
Yeah.
Oh, that's good. Well, it's a great little. I don't want to say little because there's so much of it. Isolated package of itself, and you're the only one on the planet who's done it.
True.
Yeah, we did. I mean, no one else was doing that, and animated Doctor, stop motion especially, and it'd be nice. I'm not making anymore. I don't plan to make it. I'm on the fence about doing anything with the 14th Doctor, if that's what he is. But I probably won't. I mean, I might make the puppet, but I don't think I'm even going to do that, because I think I need to move. Move on. And it's a stopping point. But if the BBC ever wants stop motion Doctor Who, then they got my email.
So what do you if you weren't to do that, like what do you see yourself doing on your nights and weekends?
Well, I'm making since Dr. Puppet ended, I made 2 films that weren't Doctor Who related. So the first one was like a little abstract sort. Well, I thought it was like an abstract art film, but it turns out I made a preschool short because I can't escape preschool. It's like little creatures dancing to music, to a piece of music made by Scott, and it did pretty well at children's film festivals. So once I figured out I didn't make an art film, I figured out I could enter it in children's film festivals, and that was cool. And then I made a horror film last year with Scott. We co-wrote it together, and I animated it. It's a little stop motion horror film, and Scott and I are making another horror film right now. So
nice.
That's I really like horror films. I'm trying to branch out.
I did watch that, some of its parts, right?
That's it.
Yeah.
That's my preschool short.
So that all shot outdoors?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
wow.
It's replacement stop motion, which is like how Jack Skellington's head was made, so that you like basically pre-animate stop motion bits and you fully replace them on the set. So you're not posing a puppet, you're just pulling one thing in front of the camera and then replacing it with another. So you can animate fast, supposedly. So that made sense to do it so I could animate outside, but it still took like 10 weekends, and it's only like 3 minutes long. And it was a learning process. It was way harder than I thought. And I got bit by a tick during it and got some disease, and that it was hard. But it was fun. I love being outside.
Suffered for your art.
Yeah, truly. That one I did.
Yeah.
But it was great to animate outside, because, that's not something you get to do very much.
Yeah.
Yeah, really.
Yeah, no. So I would recommend it. I just would do it a slightly different way next time. But the horror
maybe in Alaska where the light doesn't change very much.
Actually, I would like to make a follow-up to it, but I want to make it at night and then artificially light it.
There you go.
Yeah, because that was the hardest part was the fact that the sun moves. Surprise.
Yeah.
And actually, this wind was harder than I didn't anticipate the wind being a problem. It just moves the background too much, and it moves the leaves, and then that moves the sunbeams, and it was so if it was too sunny, I couldn't animate. If it was too windy, I couldn't animate. It was bad. But worth it.
Well, that's good. Going back to the Dr. Puppets, which one was the most challenging to create?
That's a good question. I mean, I don't know, but the one that was probably the most challenging is the one that I've never animated, which is the 13th Doctor, because I felt a lot of pressure for her to look really good because, yeah, I just wanted her to look great. And I wasn't planning to animate her. So she was really kind of like she just needed to look really great in front of the camera and not move ever. So there was a pressure there, and her costume was really hard. And I sewed that costume myself, and there was only one photo of it, and there was arguments about what the colors actually were. So I had to just guess everything, and I guessed right. So that felt really good.
Nice.
Some of the more difficult ones previously were like the fourth Doctor. His costume was so hard, but I did not make that. I handed that off to my friend Amanda, who's much better at sewing. So I couldn't have made that costume, or it would have taken me so long. But yeah, like in terms of faces, I feel like Peter was really hard also. There was also a lot of pressure for him to look good. I feel like the last two puppets, 12 and 13, I also made Bill and Nardole, and they never got animated either. But honestly, those are my best puppets because they're the ones that I knew I was only going to make them to take like a photo to put on social media. So they had to look amazing because I couldn't hide it behind animation.
Yeah, right.
But those are my best looking puppets. They're like the only ones that I have like in my portfolio on my website.
Well, I do like that 11 has a wardrobe change, and it's kind of explained that he gets it messy, his tweed messy in the
yeah, you caught that.
bakery.
Yeah. There's like some running gags with 11's costume in Dr. Puppet because he was the puppet who was around for the longest, and he got real beat up and damaged over time. And I mean, he changed his costume on the show, and then I can't remember how. I mean, we must have been off by quite a bit when he changed his costume in Dr. Puppet. I can't remember, but he gets messy, and that's what inspires the change. You see him coming out of a shop, and in the shop window you can see 12's costume. That was an Easter egg. And he also keeps losing hats. That's another gag throughout Dr. Puppet, is 11 constantly loses his hat, which is also something from the show, but we were able to put that into Dr. Puppet. And there's also a lot of birds in Dr. Puppet. He loses his hat via a bird at one point. He loses a top hat because a bird just snatches it off.
Yeah. And do you have a favorite puppet that you made?
I mean, I am really attached to 12. So even he said, just because he was the face of the show for the majority of us making Dr. Puppet, 2014 through 2018, Peter was the face. So that was the puppet that I had with me whenever, if I was going somewhere like to a convention, because he was the current Doctor, he was the one I brought. So that puppet has been all over the place. Like that puppet's been, I mean, and Aaron went traveling once with him and brought him. That was the first time he went to England. He went to Wales with Aaron because she was going on vacation to the UK. He's been with me he went to VidCon. He's been to Gallifrey 1.
Nice.
I brought him to France once. I went to the Annecy Animation Festival, and I brought.
Oh.
Yeah, he went to Annecy.
Dang.
I know. I also brought the fourth Doctor. So we went to Paris, and I shot some photos of the fourth Doctor in front of some of the City of Death locations. But
yeah, I was just going to say City of Death.
Yeah. And they're all like very close together. That's like the great thing with Doctor Who locations is they tend to be clustered because,
budget.
Yeah. So yeah, like you go to Cardiff and it's all right there. I was in Cardiff just last month, and I brought the 13th Doctor with me. So that was kind of nice because I hadn't brought a puppet with me on any trip in like a long time because I don't really do that anymore. But I figured I had to bring, because I was going to Cardiff, so I had to bring 13 with me because she'd never been. So we got a couple photos at Torchwood, and I don't think I even took any photos in front of the castle. But the castle is like the castle has been in lots of Doctor Who, and it was used for a lot of the interiors for Heaven Sent, which is funny because when Erin went to the castle with the 12th Doctor puppet, she took a bunch of photos of the 12th Doctor inside of Cardiff Castle in some of the exact rooms that ended up being in Heaven Sent. But she was there like 2 years earlier, again, because Dr. Puppet is very good at predicting the future of Doctor Who. Wow. And after the episode aired, Erin like sent me a photo, and she's like, wasn't Peter just in that room in the episode that just aired? Like,
it's crazy. It's kind of like how Back to the Future predicted, or Back to the Future 2 predicted most of what we're going through now.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I know. Exactly. Ooh. Yeah, but
For the stop motion nerds out there, was there anything that you improved upon making the puppets over time?
Oh yeah, the hands. If you watch the Dr. Puppet in order, you can see the hands get nicer over time. I was really bad at making hands in the beginning. And you can see they're like so chunky, they look like baseball mitts, like they're awful looking, and they have giant weird palms. And by the end, they're much smaller. And yeah, I don't know why. I think I wasn't very good at it. I would put like when I was putting the wires, because they're made of aluminum wire, and then they have kind of like a clay ball inside. And the clay ball I would just make too big for the palm where I stuck all the fingers in. And I just kind of, use that good old excuse where I'm like, oh, it's just the style. And I look back and I'm like, that looks terrible. That's no excuse.
Can you talk a little bit more about what everything's made out of?
Yeah, they're really simple puppets, I should say. They're like, if anyone was interested in getting into stop motion puppets, this is the kind of puppet I would suggest people start with. So they're aluminum wire, like they kind of have a skeleton inside. They're a little more complicated in the sense that they're modular, so like they pull apart, so all of their limbs can come out, and they have like their head pops off of the neck. But they don't have to be that way. But it's because we animate them so much, when a limb breaks, you can just replace that broken wire, because each wire lasts about 1 to 2 minutes of animation. But it's still a really easy way to start making puppets is with aluminum wire. And then you just, the heads are made of clay. They don't even have eyes that blink or anything. Like the eyes are just black and they're painted on. The eyebrows are painted on. And the only thing on the face that moves is the mouths, and they're stickers. So I have like a sheet with different expressions. There's like, smiles and frowns and little O mouth and big grins and things like that. And then when they change expression, you just pop a different mouth on. They don't talk much, so that's all they need. And it just shows that if you're doing expressive animation, you don't need to add blinks or eyebrows necessarily. You can get away with a lot through the gestures of the puppet. So they're really, really simple puppets. And they have, in the feet, they have just a tie down, which is that's a little hard to explain, but it's like the easiest way to get them to attach to the set. Like literally there's just a screw that goes under the set, and then it goes up into their foot. And I animated the whole thing on big blocks of foam. So I just would poke a stick through the foam, and that's how you get the hole to come up through the bottom of the set, and you tie them in place, and that's how they stand, so that they stay in place when you're animating them. They're just tied to the set, literally. And they're just, really, really simple. If you wanted to get into making stop motion puppets, I would just search aluminum wire stop motion puppet, and they're the simplest thing. There's no ball and socket here. This is not Nightmare Before Christmas. Like, they're not complicated, and there's no replacement heads. I just sew the clothes and just dress them like you would a Barbie doll. And honestly, the horror film that I made last year, I used Barbie clothing for that puppet. So that was the first time I ever just said, you know what, I'm going to make my puppet in Barbie scale so I can buy Barbie clothes. So I also kind of recommend that. Like, good place to start.
I heard Barbie was falling on hard times. That's just, she was like hawking out her,
exactly,
renting out her wardrobe, and she had such a big one. So
it's true. You can get a really good deal, and Ken doll clothes if you want to. Dr. Puppets were just a little too small to wear Barbie clothes, unfortunately. So I had to make everything custom, which is a real pain in the butt. So yeah, that's where I would recommend you start.
That's a good point, though. Like, if you went before you start making your puppets, if you're going to do something, figure out if you can buy the clothing first, like what you're going to use, and then choose the size and then make the puppets fit the clothes.
Exactly. Or make the clothes out of something like felt, so you don't even have to hem it or anything. Like, felt is really great. I recommend that as well, because sewing is hard. But I'm sewing a costume for a puppet right now, and I'm just like, I tried to do Barbie clothes for this one, but it just didn't work. Like, so I have to custom make everything, and it just takes forever. But no regrets.
Felt?
No, because I'm doing like hemming and all that good stuff.
What is the cloth you're using?
It's just like knit fabric, because the character looks like he's wearing a little sweater. So I have little like knit fabrics. I'll need a little sweater, and then I have a puppet that's wearing jeans, but you can't really use denim, so it's chambray. That's another. You have to get chambray to make puppet denim. It's a whole thing.
Yeah. What are some other tricks for scaling down life?
Oh, it's so hard. Tricks. I mean, we had, I mean, sourcing fabric to make like the Dr. Puppet costumes was so difficult, and a lot of that fell on my friend Amanda, who is, this is more of like her world. She's very into historical costumes, and she's very knowledgeable of fabric, and she knows how to navigate a fabric store better than me. So she really took on, like, she would happily wanted to make some of the costumes for Dr. Puppet. And one of the things was just sourcing fabric where it looked like the fabric that the character's wearing, but is scaled down. And she had some really good luck in a few things. Like, I remember her being so happy that she found this fabric that looked a lot like the second Doctor's trousers, but small. Like, she just found that, and it worked really well. But a couple times she couldn't find anything. It was so specific, and then she had to make it. So the hardest one was probably the Sixth Doctor. Like, basically,
oh yeah,
I mean, his coat, that was made of felt. So I don't know what his actual coat is, something very heavy or like a corduroy, but she made it out of red felt. And then she basically had to paint every patch. But that worked on the felt. It looked pretty good. And then he has yellow pants with black pinstripes, and she just had to make that. So she just had to take a ruler and like a micron pen and make the fabric for the pants. So that was all on her to source that stuff. And I am a little bit lazier when I am sourcing stuff. I tend to not go to the fabric stores. Like, I just don't know how to navigate their world as well. So I'm a big fan of going to the thrift store, and I just buy clothes. I don't need a lot of the fabric, so I'll just go to the store and I'll just buy something. And I was really proud of myself because I sourced the fabric to make the 10th Doctor's suit. Yeah, I found brown, I think it was a pair of trousers, brown trousers with blue pinstripe that were the right scale.
Wow.
And I was like, what are the chances?
Yeah,
so,
seriously.
But that maybe wouldn't have been able to have found that in a fabric store, but I found it in a thrift store. So
there you go. Man,
yeah,
that's awesome. So fabric stores, thrift stores.
Yeah, I mean, if you're making puppet clothes, I mean, what do you need? Like, you don't need very much. So yeah, and it's cheaper and it's better for the environment. So that's my advice.
Yeah. And it gives things new life, which is what Doctor Who is about. Regeneration.
Exactly.
It regenerates an old.
I regenerate old trousers.
Yeah.
That's right.
Well, you may have answered this already, but what is there any problem you came across that you ended up coming up with some real inventive solution that was a big surprise?
Ooh, there's probably so many examples of that in Dr. Puppet.
Or if does anything stand out, like I never would have thought we would have ended up doing this, but this happened. And
I mean, honestly, kind of like rewriting the ending of the whole thing was like that, because the ending of Dr. Puppet was very much tied to the 50th. And you can actually, on the Dr. Puppet channel, I wrote up the original ending as like a storybook, and Scott read it, and then so you can listen to Scott read the ending. And it's cute. It's like a party. So that was the whole idea, is what a time to the 50th, where it was like, oh, there was no malicious plot. It just turns out the Doctor had to he had to come up with a clever way to invite himself to a surprise party by making it look like an evil plan, because it was the only way he could convince himself to do something was if it looked evil. I don't know. It's a little bit lame, but it would have been.
Did that.
Sorta, yeah. But no. But yeah. So it worked out that we had to, once we had gotten away from the 50th anniversary, having the finale be a party made no sense. So we were like, it forced us to be more creative, and I like the ending we came up with better. So that there was malice in the Dr. Puppet ending, but there's still never a bad guy. It was just the 12th Doctor got himself into trouble, and he was put on the spot, and he had to call for help. And it just, from his end, he was calling for help. From everyone else's end, it looked like an evil plot.
Yeah, I did like that at the end, and they all stepped into the beam of light.
It had to line up, because it wasn't a job for one person. It was a job for 12 people.
Well, yep.
Which is, we loved it, but we always joked that it still fit like that, like preschool logic, and it felt like something from Umizoomi, where it was just like, we need 12 people to line up. 1, 2, but it's fine. Yeah, I can never shake making preschool television out of my life. Never.
If it doesn't, it's gonna resonate with everybody at some level.
I hope so.
Yeah, at the preschool level.
Yeah.
or we remember what we were like at the preschool level.
Yeah, I know, that's fine. I mean, Dr. Puppet has been. Lots of people have said it's like an introduction to kids for Doctor Who, and I love that. Like, that's
Mhm.
not bad at all. But I mean, that would have been really great if BBC said it'd be cool if we made like Doctor Who for like for kids. Like, I mean, it is for kids, but like
but like,
really
yeah.
really young kids. Like, we make kind of these standalone, sweet little episodes, and maybe one day.
Yeah, I feel like that is an untapped market because we have like so many other franchises that do shorts. Like Star Wars has a bunch of them.
Exactly. I know we were ahead of the curve, but maybe they'll come back to us. Who knows? Maybe this new leadership,
Who knows? Yeah, who knows?
Who knows? Exactly.
So in our show, we like to discuss introductory episodes that you could indoctrinate a new viewer. So is there any episode that you would use to introduce somebody to Doctor Who, or have you used an episode to do that?
Yeah, whenever this question comes up, I think the perfect episode is the 11th hour, because it's such a good way to jump into the show. And I think the Matt Smith, like his first season is like, it's my favorite season overall. It doesn't have my favorite episode, but I think it's the most solid overall season. And I think the 11th hour is so on point and sweet, and it's you can go in blind. So that is my absolute favorite one, and the one I always tell people to start with.
Nice. That is a good one.
What about Dr. Puppet? If no one's seen it before, which one should they start with?
It's a good question. I don't think I've ever been asked that one, because I mean, there isn't as much Dr. Puppet, so there's no excuse not to watch all of it. It takes like an hour.
Okay, but what if someone said, "Well, I got 5 minutes. Which one should I watch?"
If you have 5 minutes, then you should watch The Planet That Came for Christmas, because it's standalone. Like I said, it's my favorite one. It has Scott's best music in it, and it's spooky, and it's a Christmas episode, so it's got everything I love in it, and it has some of the best animation in all of Dr. Puppet. A lot of it was done by Aaron, who I mentioned, who was the one who was like tapping into Peter Capaldi's psyche. So there's all kinds of crazy stuff where he does like Nosferatu, like he does like the Nosferatu silhouette, and like this Aaron was like pulling this out of, this was way before 12 was being a spooky doctor, and she knew that he had it in him. So that's the best one. Absolutely. The rest of them are fine, but that's my favorite.
Nice. Well, to wrap it up, do you have where can we find you on social media? Anything you want to plug?
Ooh, I mean, I'm on most of the social media still under Dr. Puppet. Like, if you can find me on Twitter as the Dr. Puppet, Instagram as Dr. Puppet, and there's a pretty dead Dr. Puppet Facebook. And of course the dead Dr. Puppet YouTube, but all the content is still there, and you can still watch Dr. Puppet there on Facebook. There's like hundreds of old photos of the puppets going around New York City and different places, super fun. And my Instagram and my Twitter, I just took them over as my personal accounts because they had a lot of followers. So, and now you can watch me mostly complain about how poorly treated the animation industry is, and occasionally a Doctor Who hot take, but honestly it's mostly animation these days, and film festival news as I promote my new horror films, which is fun.
Nice. Did you mention that you had like just a website? I think you mentioned that earlier.
I do, yeah. My personal website is alisastern.com if you want to go look at my motion graphics, and there's some Dr. Puppet stuff on there too, but it's kind of the professional side.
And does Dr. Puppet have a website that's not a social media?
No, it's YouTube is still its landing page. You can watch all the episodes there. They're divided into nice little handy playlists, which make it easy, because the first episode still lives on Nerdist, which is confusing.
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. That makes sense, though.
Is the first episode on YouTube as well?
It is, but it's on the Nerdist YouTube channel, which confuses people.
Oh, so it's not. Very good, very good.
Yes, but it's all there. It's all there. And there's also commentary versions. Like in 2018, 2019, me and all the other people who worked on Dr. Puppet recorded commentary of all the different episodes as a little like fun thing to re-release them. And and then the final thing was the alternate ending. So we I don't know if we're ever going to put any content on that channel again, but it's always going to be archived.
I'll say a special thanks to Rebecca for making this happen and to introducing us to Alisa and making this possible. And who knew that Rebecca we would be talking about Doctor Who 9 years after the 50th. So thanks for listening. Stay safe, everyone. And we will see you next time when the future becomes the present. You've just listened to an episode of Who Knew?
Our wonderful theme music is by Michael Grady.
Find him on Facebook at The Universe Explodes.
Additional music is by Damio Paggio.
All our episodes are engineered by Auburn.
You can find him at auburnbakery.com.
You can find the show in several places.
Follow us on Twitter at Who Knew Podcast.
Subscribe, review, and listen to us on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and Stitcher.
Or our YouTube channel, youtube.com/whoknewpodcast.
All our episodes are on whoknewpodcast.com.
Visit our Facebook page. Please leave comments, reviews, and click like to support Who Knew Podcast.
To listen to our show on your Amazon Echo device, subscribe to us on Amazon Music, and then ask your Amazon device to play your podcast subscriptions.
This podcast is inspired by Doctor Who,
The longest running sci-fi show in history.
And especially the revival spearheaded by Russell T. Davis.
Thanks to Russell, Sidney Newman, Verity Lambert, Ron Grainer,
And all of those involved in the adventures of our favorite Time Lord.
Your work continues to inspire and entertain.